So in that last video, we started talking all about the importance of creating a culture by design. That is a culture of care, particularly in what Inc. magazine calls this the great resignation that's upon us now, right? We have every 1 in 4 employee that's going to be leaving their company primarily because they are fed up with the ways of leadership of the past. And in order for leaders to win their market and help their people come alive, they're going to have to prioritize organizational health and individual health, theirs and the people that they lead. You got to put a focus and a premium on how are you helping your people to come alive. It's hard to help other people come alive if you're feeling that you are not alive yourself. And so what does it look like to create a culture of care? It's primarily 4 main themes. And these are the same 4 themes that I use when I work with leaders in my business as an organizational health consultant and performance coach. And I've placed these themes under the acronym of CARE, so it's a little bit more memorable. So the C stands for clarity. You want to create intellectual alignment. The A stands for alignment. You want to create behavioral alignment. The R stands for responsibility. What does it look like to take radical responsibility? That means now as a leader, I'm creating a conscious culture of leadership. And then the E stands for energy. How can you create, magnify energy for yourself and those that you lead? It's going to be important to elicit purpose from other people. You know, Phil Jackson, the great coach of the Bulls and Lakers, who won 11 rings as a coach. In his book called 11 Rings, I highly recommend it. He actually talks about the highest form of motivation being purpose and then leading into love. He says that if leaders are to create great tribes, which is what he sought to do with the Lakers when he first arrived, and obviously with the Bulls. He said, you got to take them away from being inspired and motivated from a culture of fear, guilt, and shame, and ultimately you enter into the 4th upper level, which is one of purpose, and then and play, and you enter into the 5th level, which ultimately is love. And this is what you find in some of the highest performing teams like Navy SEALs, or even teams, football teams, baseball teams, sport teams that have one another's back, and they're winning and they're seeking the highest possible good for one another. If you're going to create a culture of care, it first starts with intellectual alignment, and that is where we have the C for care, which is clarity. If you're going to create clarity, if you're going to get every person on the same page, you have to be able to do so in one page. And that is every time you have a meeting, you're reinforcing 6 critical questions, as my teacher, Pat Lencioni, calls it. And that is, why do we exist? How do we behave? What do we do? How will we win? What's important now? And who's going to do what? I highly recommend you searching for these 6 critical questions. You can do so on Google, and you can just find a PDF of these questions and work through them on your own. And so that first question, in terms of why do we exist? This is the question of purpose, right? And it gets deeper than just what is our mission or what is our vision. It gets to the critical understanding of why did we start this thing? Like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? The best way that you can answer this question as a team, and this has to be a team question response, which it really comes down to, how do we make the world a better place? You can answer that question. You begin to tap into the element of purpose for your employees. You create a bigger, more expansive reason for why you get up in the morning and do what you do. You're kind of creating energy. And that second question then is, how do we behave? This is really the values question. And so this is, how are we going to behave with one another? Like, what is the behavioral alignment that we're going to seek to live by? One company that I recently worked with, their 3 values, and these were not just aspirational values. These were lived experiences that they had. Their value was they were going to do so in a way that was wholehearted, gracious and gritty. Another one used one that said, we're going to bring the nerd. It was for a tech company that we worked with, a great team, a great organization. And so what are the values by which you're going to hold one another accountable to? And you're going to create peer-to-peer accountability by. The third question then is, what do we do? Very simply put, what is it that we do? We're not going to put it in elaborate words. We're not going to try to create a riddle or a poem out of it. We're going to be very, very simple. So let's say we were answering these first three questions and we were a sporting good company. That first question would be around why do we exist? Well, we exist to, let's say, enable people to enjoy the outdoors and live a more rich life. That's how we're bringing good to the world. And that second question, how do we behave? We behave in a way that is, we behave with enthusiasm, personal responsibility, and we take pride in ownership. That's how we behave. And then let's say the third question of what do we do? We equip people with the highest quality sporting good or athletic gear. We're getting very simple. And that would then lead us to the fourth question, which ultimately is, how will we succeed? And this is really answering the question, how will we make decisions to maximize our success? To begin to unlock this question, you would take out a sheet of paper, a whiteboard, and just begin to write down in a very non-sexy way all of the things that you do on a weekly basis. And this would be everything from we unpack boxes, we buy and sell goods, we meet with clients, we teach customers what it means to live an outdoor lifestyle, all of the things that you would do as an outdoor sporting good company, right? That's answering the question, how will we succeed? And then you come down to maybe three primary areas. You really begin to triangulate and create themes, look for larger buckets that encapsulate all of those things that you do so that you can communicate with your team, here's how we succeed. And then lastly, the question, or second to last, number 5 would be, what's important now? And this would benefit an entire video itself. And so I'll be very short on this one because in my opinion, this question around what's important now, actually all of these questions really could translate to a family or to an individual leader or to an entire organization. But what's important now is asking the question, in the next 90 days or 6 months, what's the one thing we're going to focus on? Highly recommend The One Thing by Gary Keller. He really begins to elaborate on this concept as well, but the way that we help in organizations to change their meetings is to help them focus intensively on what's important now, then what are the strategic objectives that are going to help you get there, what are the 3 or 5 things, projects that are going to help you accomplish that one thing, and then what are the standard operating procedures that you're doing on a weekly basis that are going to facilitate you completing those projects, that's going to allow you to complete that one thing. And then that last question really is, who's going to do what? This is so highly important. I highly recommend, there's some incredible diagnostic tools out there. The Working Genius most recently is fantastic, allowing people to understand, okay, if we're going to complete these projects, and let's say there are, excuse me, it's not COVID, it's saliva. Let's say there are 6 phases to this project, then who does what the best? And so we're beginning to really assign who's going to do what on, not just on every individual project, but within the organization as a whole. This falls under creating clarity. It's the first pillar to creating a culture of care. C stands for clarity, And in the next video, we'll get into alignment.